you're looking for positivity or looking for encouragement, to me a Brinson aims to educate you, to give you the push to believe, to have the mindset for success, mindset for success, to have the mindset for success, to have the mindset for success.
Tonight we have a very special presentation for you. This is one of the journalistic pieces where I tackled the pertinent and controversial subject of black-on-black violence. And we shot this right after the deaths of 2 law enforcement officers and the manhunt that followed that. And this occurred in the Orlando, Florida community. In Central Florida, we recently had an incident where Markeith Lloyd killed his ex-girlfriend. Her name was Sade Dixon, and also a local cop, Deborah Clayton. In your radio audience, what's the reaction that you heard at the time concerning, because that all of the people in the incidents were African Americans?
Yeah.
So, concerning black-on-black crime and that particular incident, what was the reaction of Central Florida?
Coming from my listeners at the radio station, there was a lot of concern because Officer Deborah, we used to see her at all the events, and she was very, you could see her everywhere at all of the things around Orange County and Orlando. But the concern was for the brutality of it and how it all happened. And there was a lot of fear. Markeith Lloyd had the city locked down for a few days. People were afraid to move about because we knew that he was still in the area. But for some of my listeners, there was some disappointment in the Orlando Police Department in that this guy that had just shot his girlfriend was less than a mile from her house. And they had told us that he had disappeared, and here he is at a Walmart shopping. So from the listeners at WKB 16, can I say that? From my listeners at Inspiration 1680, there was a lot of concern. They wanted him to be apprehended. There was a lot of concern for Officer Clayton's family, as well as the other deputy from Orange County Sheriff's Office who lost his life while they were pursuing Markeith Lloyd after he had stolen a car from the Walmart. So there was an outpouring of concern, and it was mainly for Officer Clayton's. Now posthumously, she was promoted to Lieutenant Deborah Clayton. There was an outpouring of love and concern for her, and there was also a concern for Markeith Lloyd in his state, because when they did catch him, it looks like they beat him up pretty bad. He had successfully hidden out in the neighborhood for almost a week, and there was some concern as to the degree to which Orlando police actually looked for him.
Okay, now you said brutality of the incident. What do you mean by that? Brutality against the ex-girlfriend or the officer, or what do you mean by that?
In both cases, and I don't know if you listened or not. It's really funny that you asked, because this was one of my Tuesday top topics, and we talk topics, and we talked about this at great length and in detail. And so I had, you know how people call you with the 411, the inside scoop. I had a lot of people who knew Markeith and knew the situation with him and Sade Dixon, his girlfriend. And so there were these, what they want to say is extenuating factors. But the fact of the matter is, he shot his pregnant girlfriend and their baby. And so after this, he hides out, and they're like, oh, we can't find him. But again, he shows up at a Walmart less than 5 miles from where he shot Sade. And when it's reported that when Officer Clayton approached him and they had words, and she made a positive ID that yes, in fact, this was the man, the fugitive who they were looking for. I don't know who drew their weapon first, but it ended with Markeith standing over her and firing rounds into her. That's not good. That's brutal, and it was cold-blooded. And the level of violence and the level of again brutality that he possessed to do such a thing, we haven't seen that in a while. Not in quote unquote our neighborhood.
As far as the sentiment, you expressed two parties that express the same sentiment. As far as the importance of life, concerning how the police department reacted to, or the timeliness of how they reacted to the incident of the ex-girlfriend. And then also the same sentiment, well, I wouldn't say the same, but the lack of importance of life that Markeith Lloyd had for the ex-girlfriend as well as the cop.
Lieutenant Clayton.
So, as far as your audience in Central Florida through your radio station, what solutions do you think, what solutions do you hear from the community? What do you think that we should...
In that particular case, or gun violence in general?
In general, and then also in that case.
It's just sad all around, the disregard for life, and how they allowed, and I know we have some really good officers in the Orlando Police Department, but when he turned up less than 5 miles from the scene of the original crime, after they had told us that they were diligently seeking for him, searching for him, come on.
Well, doesn't that indicate that family and friends also is, may be at fault though?
Well, you're right, because he could have had some people hiding him out. We know that one of them, and they put these people in jail, was his employer. One of them was his employer, but to be fair to him, he says that he was afraid of Markeith. Markeith came to the store asking for money, and he said that he saw that he wasn't in, his mental state had changed, and he scared him. So he gave him the money.
Okay, and I also remember is it a niece
Yes.
that came forward after the fact and said that he was a nice guy, but the original incident went awry. What is it in our community that gives us, that allows us to take up for each other, killing each other?
And that's in certain communities. In certain inner city communities, of which I had, because I had been saved all my life, and I frequented those communities, and there's a tightness about that where we take care of our own. You understand? Well, we handle everything in-house. It doesn't have to get outside of us. This is how we do stuff. Whereas in other communities, it's let's call the authorities. In certain inner city communities, it's we take care of our own. And so I think that's a part of the we take care of our own school of thought, where, hey, Markeith is our boy. You know, we know the good Markeith. We know that he didn't mean to do this, you know, blah, blah, blah. A lot of people went on his social pages and looked at his social pages and her, and again, I think they discounted her life. You know, they kind of, her life becomes less valuable than someone else. That's why, you know, they were, a lot of people saying, see, black lives don't matter.
Okay, last question. How do we break that cycle of looking after our own?
In those types of neighborhoods, I don't know if you'll ever break that cycle, because it's deep rooted. Comes from a long way back where we did have to look out for our own because the authorities were the bad guys. The authorities were the ones that came to drag us off from our families and do unspeakable things to us. So that would be kind of hard to do. But you would have to change their minds. There needs to be a reaching out, more community policing. Remember when we grew up and we had Officer Friendly come to our school? More of that. We can get a relationship where we're not afraid that if we go to them, they might turn the tables on us, you know, draw us in. Oh, why did you have these people? Are you harboring these? No, we're just telling you that there's bad guys in our neighborhood.
Right.
You know, we're not a part of it. Don't implicate us. You know, and all too often that happens. And so you have people keeping to themselves. For myself, and this is personal, I had to get to a place where I had to be changed by the renewing of my mind. I had to change my thinking that the police are in fact my friends, that I have a home that I pay taxes for, so they work for me, as a matter of fact. And you have to come to that realization and be open to seeing them in a different light. If not, it's just gonna be the same old hood stuff. It's going into some of these inner city neighborhoods here. Even in Temia, I went down to the soccer stadium. My brother and I, we were going over to Callahan, and for some reason or other, the city of Orlando thought it good to put a sparkling, glimmering, shimmering, shiny stadium smack dab in the middle of Paramount. We're looking at this huge stadium and we're at a light and a man comes up and asks us for a quarter. He's drunk as I don't know what. This is the thing, this is the dichotomy, the disparity that you have there where it's a different world. And they're trying to function in their world. And it's gonna take somebody who knows what it is to have been there to reach them and say, hey man, y'all need to catch up. So it's gonna take people who care and who don't want to leave our community behind. It's going to take people to concede that what's good for one is good for all, and we all need to go forward together. We can't leave anybody behind. No pockets in Paramore, no pockets over there off Bruton on Ivy Lane, no pockets off of, in Pine Hills. It can't be crime hills anymore. None of that. And it's going to take a community concerted effort on the part of Orange County and Orlando administration, government, police, and the community.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
COVID-19 has changed how we express our faith and gather to worship. We all want to get back to how we pray, how we congregate, how we lift our voices in praise. Now it's time to take the first step that lets us get back to spreading the word without spreading concern. Before we can safely come together, we need the facts. As COVID-19 vaccines become available, you may have questions.
Should I get it?
Is it safe?
Should I wait?
It's okay to have questions. Now get the facts. Learn more at getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you.
Right now, the COVID-19 vaccines are available to millions of Americans, and soon they will be available to everyone.
This vaccine means hope. It will protect you and those you love from this dangerous and deadly disease.
I want to go back to work and I want to be able to move around.
To visit with Michelle's mom, to hug her and see her on her birthday.
You know what I'm really looking forward to is going to opening day in Texas Ranger Stadium with a full stadium.
We've lost enough people and we've suffered enough damage.
In order to get rid of this pandemic, it's important for our fellow citizens to get vaccinated.
I'm getting vaccinated because we want this pandemic to end as soon as possible.
So we urge you to get vaccinated when it's available to you.
So roll up your sleeve and do your part.
This is our shot.
Now it's up to you.
Okay, I've read various accounts as to why black-on-black crime is actually an issue. I've read where, one instance where it says it's a breakdown of the family, lack of leadership in the churches, and poverty may be an issue. Also lack of education and economic opportunities. But I want to kind of narrow that down. What do you think is the actual root cause for black-on-black crime today?
Truthfully, I believe that I don't think that there's one specific root cause to it. I think that there are several issues that have to be dealt with within the black community. Some of the key points that you had in your question, I think, are very important. Family is of great importance, and the reason why I would say that is because we have an expectancy of greatness, of being great, and having finances things of that nature. But we do not have the amount of oversight as far as training, teaching how to get to success. When it comes to those areas, it's missing. We can easily say, yes, the black male is out of the family, so there's no father figure to lead the way, which kind of leads a breakdown to mom, who is only a single parent, who cannot do it all and work at the same time. And you can even try to outsource the issue to community factors such as church and things of that nature, leadership. But ultimately, it will go back to the message that we send out, whether it's through media, whether it's through, let's say, television, music, different areas where we paint that picture of, you could be successful, you're meant to be successful, money is very important, and we send all of these messages out there, but no one's teaching them how to obtain it. And education is such a key, because we skip the education portion, because it's like, we want quick money, but we have to teach at some point the importance of working for or towards the success, and let them know, and our youth know, that it's important, because these things don't happen overnight. So there's a lot of areas that we could actually point towards. It's kind of rough to really pinpoint it, but I do believe that family is one of the big key points, and I think a secondary thing would be just the oversight of learning how to get to where you're trying to get to in life.
Okay, learning. You also mentioned media and messaging. We had an off-camera discussion about media, Hollywood, movies, and you mentioned how certain movies are portrayed or betray the black community. So tell me, how do you feel that plays into, or does it play into, our perception as far as black on black crime and messaging?
Well, I think we can never overlook the point of the mind. What you put in a person's mind as far as what's obtainable for them is usually what they gravitate towards. So if they never have a picture in front of them of a successful individual that looks like them, or came from where they came from, then they often feel they should be stuck in the place that they are. And most of our movies portray us as, the deadbeat father, the drug dealer, the wife beater. When we see that in the gang members, and when we see that, that's what we paint in our mind over and over again. That's who we are. That's who we are. That's who we are. When we look in other cultures, they may have some elements of that in some of their movies or media, but they project more of substance, a life with education, a life with a degree, positions, titles, doctors, lawyers, and power in some way, shape, or form. And it's somewhat of a subliminal, it could be a subliminal message that is left with us to make us believe that this is where I belong and that's where the world belongs. And it's like, for me, I think that that's really important, that we should paint a picture of ourselves being more than what the average African-American movie has painted pictures of us in the past.
That also leads me to responsibility. Solving or leading to a reduction or taking responsibility for our behavior in our communities. Does that do we as a African American community need to take the messaging and the media part into our hands, or is it more effective to partition the people who are already in, who have an apparatus or an organization to do so?
I think that until the community itself takes the ownership of the community that they live in, we'll continue to have issues when it comes to the violence and the crime that happens within the community. If our community did not tolerate it, we would see a decrease in crime. But when we play hush hush, when we play the game of don't tell what you see, and when we turn the other way instead of reporting or even having some form of corrective action within the community towards the individuals that break the law. Until we take ownership and we love our community, I believe we'll continuously have the same issues ongoing, no matter who steps in. We could change 1 million laws that would place an individual in jail for doing certain crimes, but if they're never reported, the law really doesn't carry any weight if we don't step up and say enough is enough.
So tolerating, you said, turning a blind eye,
Right.
and don't turn a blind eye, and also if you speak up and tell what we know, is that enough? To me, it sounds like it's at the adult level.
Right.
And it seems like it needs to start at a much earlier.
Well, that's the thing. It's
time.
The funny thing is, our adults know what's happening in their community. It's the adults who have become a part of the activity themselves. And when an adult does not react a certain way, a child sees that, and the action becomes learned. So if the adults don't tell, now the child knows that we don't tell. And that'll continue. That's the only way information is passed on in our community. And it continues to go from generation to generation. It's gotten a lot worse now. But that's primarily because the adults in these communities now, the lack of the education, and I would say not only education, it's a lot of frustration that's there. A lot of them, they don't want problems. It's like, we've gotten older, just want to live in my peaceful home, and whatever's happening out and around me, let it happen. And I think that is kind of like the breakdown of our society. And if I could just add, I like to paint the picture sort of similar to cancer. If you have cancer in the outermost part of your body, the hand, the foot, you can go about day by day and pay no attention to that cancer and believe that it'll go away. But cancer spreads. And sooner or later, it comes knocking at the door of life. And it's the same way with crime in our community. When we overlook the issue and hope that it just goes away, sooner or later, it's going to come to your doorstep. And that's what we live through every day.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
We will continue with this presentation next week.
You have the mindset for success. If you're looking for positivity,